Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. It is a brand new post weigh-in live stream. We don't do this each and every week on the show, but I had a little bit of extra time on my hands. I know that I will be up all night, in all likelihood, breaking down these fights. So with a lot of work still to be done, wanted to come to the people and just see what's on your guys' mind, what you guys wanted to talk about these fight cards. In addition, we'll come back to you guys with some weigh-in notes, how we felt about some of these fighters at the face-offs, some of the size discrepancies, things like that. And we're going to be doing it with a special guest, as you guys have come to expect. Our guy, Jewish Better, back on the show once again. How you feeling, my brother?
I'm good, man. Let's just be honest though. I kept bothering Liam, so I said we got to do a stream. We got to do a stream. So he finally gave in. Nah, I'm just playing. My dude Liam, I appreciate you here. I'm fresh off a nap. I got some good rest, so I'm ready to break down these fights, my man.
Awesome, dude. I love it. And I think we should just start here with the main event. In terms of what I saw at the face-off and the weigh-in, I think both these guys look pretty good for the weight class. I think obviously Edson looks a little bit bigger. He's a former 155-pound fighter. It's sort of to be expected, but I also think that they look similar in size when they're facing off with one another. I didn't think it was a huge discrepancy one way or the other. So for me, it just seems like, potentially the biggest discrepancy between the two guys is the age and the miles on the odometer, right? You look at a guy like Edson Barboza, while he has a ton of highlight reel knockouts, great performances, great wins and finishes, including that one against Billy Quarantillo, he's also a guy that, he's been around for a very long time. He's fought a murderer's row inside the UFC, and he has 5 out of 6 finish losses in the first 3 rounds. So, the fact that this is scheduled for 5 is potentially a formality, right? It's one of the rare featherweight fights where you're seeing a 3.5 round total and it's favored to go under, right? So I just think of this as a very interesting, compelling fight where both guys are live to finish in the early going, but I probably just favored the recoverability, the youth on the Sodiq Yusuff side a little bit more. And in addition to that, I think he's a little bit more well-rounded with his approach, a little bit more likely to attempt some takedowns, but I'm curious what you think about this matchup, brother.
Yeah, dude, I like the take. He's gonna have to mix in the offensive wrestling, and we've seen him do it before versus Caceres. But yeah, speaking of just the weight in general, yeah, I always gotta look at Barboza, right? Because he's getting older now, and we gotta know this 45 cut can't be the easiest for him, but he seems to be doing it pretty easily. Getting to the weight, it doesn't look like he's had any real problems yet, except the Mitchell fight where he didn't look that good. I think he looked a little better this time. Like you said, I like the younger guy. The guy, I think he has a little bit more ways to win in this one. Just like a random stupid side note, and I'm gonna just pass it off to you. I ran this one for fun on like UFC 4, like a simulation, like 10 times, where I stopped after 5 because it ended the same way every time. And I don't mean to like get anyone nervous, but every single time it was a leg injury via like checked leg kicks. So UFC 4 simulation thinks this is gonna be a main event ending by checked leg kicks on either side. So yeah, but the crazy thing is, like watching the film, both guys do throw a ton of leg kicks. Like Yusuff likes the leg kick, Barboza likes the leg kick. I think it's going to be an interesting one. But yeah, I see Yusuff using a little bit of offensive wrestling. He doesn't have the greatest percentage when it comes to it, but he's pretty strong once he gets on top. And we've seen Barboza in trouble there too, bro. So yeah, I'm with you on Yusuff, man. Not crazy high on him, but I like him.
Yeah, I think that because he hasn't been submitted very often, people don't really think about his liability potentially on the mat. But he's also a guy that's been in the UFC for a very long time. He has no wins by submission in the organization. So he's a guy that has really not shown a lot of offensive prowess on the ground. But from a defensive standpoint, when he was the one that initiated the grappling against Tony Ferguson, people will forget that. He's the one that shot the first takedown there. And what happened? He instantly got snapped down. He got taken to snap down city when that was still open for business. And he got put, quickly in a very compromised situation. How about when he was fighting Donald Cowboy Cerrone, tit for tat, back and forth fight, exchanges in the pocket. Then all of a sudden, one jab from Donald Cerrone changes the complexion of the fight. He gets wobbled, and he just instantly hops on the guy's back and puts the choke in. All she wrote. So I look at a guy like Sodiq Yusuff. He's trained under Lloyd Irvin for a very long time, and he hasn't pulled out that grappling chops inside the octagon. He's really kept it in his back pocket. And then what does he do last time against Don Shainis? For the first time in his career, he beats him up with a couple knees to the body, and he says, I'm going to make it a quick, easy night at the office. I'm going to take this guy home instantly with the guillotine choke. And I'm a guy that likes a good guillotine choke, right? I'm a sucker for a good guillotine. And he's not guillotining and going flat back. He's not guillotining and just putting himself in a compromised situation. Instead, he puts himself onto the hip. So Don Shainis had a choice between put myself flat on my back and try and survive from under the mount, with Sodiq Yusuff on top of me, or try and survive this choke. He chose to survive the choke, and he couldn't survive the choke. So I just think that Sodiq Yusuff has a very dangerous front headlock game. And when I'm looking at where we could see Edson being a little bit liable potentially in the grappling, I do think it's that front headlock game. Tony laid out a very easy blueprint, but Cowboy Cerrone dropped him and he went to turtle, right? But Cowboy is known for that rear naked choke sequence. So what did he do? He just spun behind and then put in the rear naked choke. It was from the same turtle sequence. So I think that if we see Sodiq get him into a turtle sequence, I think he's going to go for a front headlock choke, and I think he's going to finish him. So that's the thing that I think is interesting about this matchup, is that I think Sodiq has more paths to the victory. However, you're seeing a guy in the underdog here, Edson Barboza. His winning condition, right? His money line is highly correlated with his knockout. You see that his money line is about plus 150. The knockout is like peaking at plus 230. Really, you're not getting much better than a plus 250 or something in that spot. So they're really closely correlating those two outcomes. They think that Edson's got to knock him out to win. But if you look historically, Sodiq has been hurt before. He's been buzzed, rocked. It's his recoverability and the youth factor, I think, that might make the ultimate difference here. But with that being said, my man, why don't we move it along to the next fight here, where we got Jennifer Maia taking on Viviane Araújo, and Brazil on Brazil crime. We got a bunch of Brazilian fighters on this card. We got multiple instances of Brazil on Brazil fighters. And this is a case where Jennifer Maia, 2-fight win streak, looks like she has a little bit more momentum on her side here. She's the younger fighter, albeit both these women over 35 years of age. So really, both of these women are within that striking distance of relevancy, but they just haven't really broken through. I don't think they register with the common fan so much. So I'm curious, how do you feel about this fight? How are you handicapping it? You think there's any value here, brother?
Yeah, I do. Originally, I kind of put this lower on my confidence level earlier in the week, but the later the week goes, I haven't put my bet on it yet, but I'm going to wait. And shout out my dude, Nate Brown. Yeah, appreciate that, bro. Anything helps, bro. For my boy, Liam, he deserves it, bro. Dude puts in a lot of work. You just heard it right there in that last breakdown, right? So, yeah, definitely appreciate you. I like Araújo here. I'm just going to be flat out. I'm looking to put a big bet on it, but I'm going to wait right till the very end. I want to see where the market goes on this one. I'm just going to wait until they get into the damn octagon, because I got all day, baby. It's not like I'm rushed to get this bet in. I don't think the line's going anywhere. If anything, I think the public's a little bit shaded towards Maia, and that's not why I'm betting on this. I'm not just going to go fade the public, outright. I think it's just a little bit of a recency bias spot, right? We saw the best performance from Jennifer Maia versus Casey O'Neill, who I never rated that highly in the first place anyway, right? She's got a big name, very popular, but we saw, she could be beat by a girl like Maia, and we saw it on the last fight. The win before, Marina Marotte, dude, I think, she's kind of done. She's toward the end of her career, doing the OnlyFans thing. So good win, good solid win. But it was anything that, said, wow, this girl is great. I have to bet on her chalk in her next fight, right? She won as a big underdog versus Casey O'Neill. I think it's a little bit different here, man. Both girls, like you said, a little bit older, but Araújo has the experience as well. And I think when it comes down to it, this isn't a complete wash in the boxing. I like what I see from Maia on the feet, but, she throws a little bit arm punches. She's not the best stand-up fighter in the world. I think, we saw Vivi go 5 rounds with Grasso. She didn't win the fight, but, she's had decent, success in the boxing at certain points in the fight with the flyweight champ, man. In a fight before, we saw the fight with Hebos, right? That was probably everyone's, a little bit eye-opening, right? Because we saw how she could slow down the later the fight goes. But, man, that fight just didn't go for her when it started from the beginning, right? She goes out in the round 1, jumps a guillotine, doesn't have any success with it, winds up on her back for most of the round. That doesn't mean she's a fish on her back. I think Hebos has good top control. I've seen Vivi get up from the bottom position and even, use the get up from the bottom position to get into her own takedown. So I don't think she's a complete fish on her back. Maya herself, she has submissions, right? She got that arm bar versus Joanne Calderwood. I don't think that's going to happen to a higher like jiu-jitsu belt like a Vivian Araujo, who's very smart and controlled from the top position. And she mixes in her takedowns pretty well. As you know, you seen in the she took down Shukagian. I remember her taking down Lee a few times with some good wrestling. Grasso was put on her butt. You know, she just didn't have success versus Hebos. And I was going to say in the Hebos fight, man, she came out and just got rocked in the second round. She was still there. She was still ready to go even after that guillotine. It wasn't like she burned her arms out. She just, you know, Hebos caught her that night. I think it was a bad performance, and it happens, man. You know, anything could happen on that given night. I don't think this is indicative of just Vivi completely slowing down. I think she really just had a bad night, man. Both girls over the age of 35. I think one girl has grappling upside, and I think most of the public is on Maya, bro. Like, I just, that adds on to the fact that I like Vivi here. Yeah, man, I think I'm gonna wait till the last second. I want to see where this line moves. If it doesn't move at all, I'm just really confused because it seems like to me that everybody's on Maya here, and I'm not getting any line movement. I've seen it bump up to like 170. It'll come right back down. You know, so yeah, I'm on Vivi this week. I like her quite a bit. And I think this one goes to decision. Most of these girls' fights have went to decision. And if it's going to be that little split screen at the end, and it's going to be Chris Lee and Sal D'Amato, right? I want my
Dirty Sal in the game.
I want my money on Vivi Araujo here, baby. So let's take it to the bank. That's going to be probably my biggest bet this week, sir. So yeah, haven't put it in yet, but I'm waiting to the last second. I want to see where the number gets.
You know, something about this line has smelled fishy to me all week as well. Where it just seems like for the amount of love that I'm seeing, I'm not seeing the corresponding line movement to your point. But in addition, 84% of Topology votes on Jennifer Maya. It makes sense, right? It's just logical that the average person will look at 2 straight wins, 2 straight losses, right, on opposite sides and just say, let me take the girl with the momentum who's been winning fights. She's also younger, right? So she's going to check the boxes for you. She got to take that against Shevchenko, so you're going to take that to the bank, right? Oh, her wrestling, underrated. I don't know. I think that the truth is that Shevchenko had overrated wrestling. So I think that now, it's kind of been exposed for what it is, which is a little bit of a liability for her. She's been getting taken down since the Juliana Pena fight way back in the day. So there should be no surprises there. Now, when I look at Jennifer Maya, I do say to myself, she's a little bit rote. She's a little bit average on the feet. And the stats actually point to Viviana Araujo being the side here. Not only does she have the 4-inch reach advantage in terms of the anthropomorphic, so the age discrepancy here is very small. They're both over 35 years of age, to my point from before. So they're around 1 year apart from each other. Okay, so Vivi's a little bit older, I'll grant that, but she's got the 4-inch reach advantage in a fight that could take place primarily on the feet. And you look at, she lands more strikes per minute on average. Yes, she absorbs more strikes per minute on average, but she gets into more exchanges. Her defense rate, 55%, same as Jennifer Maya. What's the striking difference in their numbers? 47% striking accuracy compared to just 38% for Jennifer Maya. So it seems like if Vivi is out there throwing her shots, she could be a little bit more accurate. And I think she's probably a more impactful striker overall. I think she carries more power. What's one thing about Amanda Hebos that's not true about Jennifer Maya? Amanda Hebos is young and dynamic. I think that people have an idea in their head that Amanda Hebos can't strike because she's susceptible to being knocked out. But the truth is she just doesn't have a very good chin, and she never has. She cuts a lot of weight, in my opinion. She's a little bit of a tweener. If there was a 121, this girl would be a world champ, right? But she's kind of stuck going down to 115, 125. They're a little bit too big for her. Could light her up with the big power, but also at 115, she's got to cut a lot of weight. It's a serious cut for her. She's got a lot of muscle. And so when I looked at that fight on paper, that's a young girl who's still dynamic and still getting better, who, by the way, got robbed against Caitlin Chukagian. Don't hate me. She's a Renzo Gracie girl, but I truly felt that way. And I had a lot of money on Amanda Hebos, and I thought she won that fight. I thought she did the better work on the ground. She controlled a girl who's a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu from the Renzo Gracie system and very difficult to control on the mat. She did that for multiple minutes at a time. So Amanda Hebos, underrated, in my opinion. And I faded her against Macy Barber because that's where the rubber meets the road, my friend. That's where the 121-pound weight class comes into account, because I think that Macy Barber could compete at 135 and have some success as well. She's very physical, way more physical than the average flyweight fighter. So I look at this and I say to myself, how could they scoop the market on this? There's a couple ways. I think Vivi is one way to scoop the market. And I think that Vivi by sub is being very weirdly priced. Like, I just look at the markets all the time and just like scan my way through. But like, why is Viviane Araújo, who doesn't have any wins by sub in the UFC? Let me just fact check myself. I believe that's historically true.
You are correct, sir.
So no, not one single win by sub in the UFC, and it's plus 700. That seems like remarkably low. And she's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So maybe the books are aware of the fact that Jennifer Maia has been taken down a number of times. And a lot of girls aren't very aggressive from the top position. We saw in that last fight, it was aggressive to a fault, right? She goes out there against Amanda Ribas, who, by the way, grappled just fine, cleanly with Mackenzie Dern. So I think that when you look at Amanda Ribas, here's the other thing that goes unremarked upon. She beat the hell out of Mackenzie Dern on the feet, just boxed her up. Her offense on the feet is fine. It's a little rote and predictable, but it's effective. She'll punch you right in the face squarely with the jab over and over and over again. Has no problem doing that. She just can't take the shots on the comeback. When I'm looking here, I'm like, Jennifer Maia, I thought went to a very nip-tuck decision with Jessica Eye. Is Jessica Eye like the world's greatest striker? Is she setting the world on fire? I don't think so. I think she's an all right boxer. I think she's willing to get in there and exchange. And what cost her that fight? Blood. A little bit of blood. Maybe Jennifer Maia gets the unfortunate cut on Saturday night so Dirty Sal and the gang can do her wrong. But yeah, I'm kind of feeling like this is a potential buster. Please go ahead, my friend.
Yeah, just because I'm so passionate about it, right? And I'm going to have a big bet on it. Man, like, I love what you said. And I think if she does get the chance to get a sub, it's probably going to be an arm triangle from the top. I've seen, Maia put in these positions. Vivi's got a strong, top game, bro. She could put you in some potential bad spots on the ground. She even had Ribas in that nasty guillotine in the last fight. Like, that could have finished some girls on a different day. So, yeah, man, I like this. I like what you're thinking here. I like what you see. I'm on a Rojo here. But the last thing I want to say is, man, Maya's takedown defense is just poop. And she was overextending on her punches versus Chookagian, and it just gave Chookagian the double underhooks that she wanted. I think you give Vivi that spot, she's going to take you down time and time again. She's shot 10 of them versus Alexa Grasso. She used her wrestling as her primary weapon in the Andrea Lee fight. Man, I think people are crazy to think that she's not going to try and wrestle here, right? So, yeah, man, I'm with you. I really like Rojo here. Let's go.
And again, I'm not saying that I haven't decided exactly what I'm going to do in this fight. I'll go back and retape some of the fine details because I think it's interesting what you're pointing out about the head and arm choke. I'll look into that specifically. If I was to rank order, some other holds that I like, guillotine's obviously at the top, but definitely in my top 5, top 3 is that head and arm choke. I love that series as well. So I'll definitely check that out. Now, when I'm looking at the stats though, my man, again, if you were to just if I said to you, all right, forget everything you know about these women and everything you've seen, let's just look at what the numbers say. The numbers would again point to the Vivi side when you go from the strikes to the grappling, right? 1.81 takedowns per 15 minutes. So almost 2 takedowns per 15 minutes compared to just 0.27 for Jennifer Maia. So she's normally content with those striking numbers, whereas sometimes Viviane Araújo mixes in those takedown attempts. She landed over 100 significant strikes on Alexa Grasso, plus the only 2 takedowns of that fight. So I think that that's something to keep in the back of our mind. Then in terms of takedown defense, to your point, 57% for Jennifer Maia, not elite numbers by any metric. 82% on the other side for Viviane Araújo. In terms of the takedown accuracy, almost 50% takedown accuracy, which is virtually unheard of, I feel like, in WMMA. I'd have to look into that in terms of the stats, but I feel like that's a very good number, just instinctually. 21% for Jennifer Maia. So again, compared to another fighter that she's going against this weekend, the stats say it's all Araújo. So I'm going to fact check it. I'm going to see if it passes the eye test for me again tonight by going back and doing more due diligence. But for me, this is a very interesting underdog spot potentially.
Go back and watch that Chookagian fight where in round 2 she tries the worst fucking arm throw over the top and just gives up her back in round 2. Just gives up her back. Just gives it up.
Please take it. Have it. It's yours. Have it. It's yours. The one thing I will say, I was doing my guy Narco Cop show earlier. So if you guys haven't checked it out, Lambo Plays podcast, make sure you stay with us. But after, of course, go check that out. Great show. Pleasure to be there. And I did mention Jennifer Maia round 3 is like 30-1 or some like absurd number. And how does Vivi tend to perform over time? She kind of does this. She just like she starts off pretty strong, and then over the course of the fight, if it's not going her way, especially, she starts to trend downward, I think, pretty hard. She's 36 and a half years of age. At a certain point, she could just look old overnight. So I think all those things being live possibilities, when would it happen? Is it going to happen in the first round? This is like super juice to go over. So I expect that it would probably be a later finish if it was to materialize. And I do think it would probably be from fatigue more than anything else. I don't think that Jennifer Maia is some particular finisher, but she's willing to throw some volume and some output. She can normally keep a steady pace for 15. And if that's not the case for Araujo, I think that's the path for Maia to find a finish. I don't think she's a great finisher. But again, when you're looking at big numbers, it's not something you go invest, a big portion of your bankroll, but just small shots to win a lot. That's one thing that I might take a look at from the Maia side because I don't discriminate, right? I'm happy to have both sides of a fight if I think there's value on multiple numbers, and I like to look at the props always. So shout out to my guy Narco, made me think critically about this fight a little bit, and that was how I came up with my shots. And so there you have it. Let's move on to this next fight, my man, where we've got the talk of the town, Jonathan Martinez, Adrian Yanez, right around that pick'em range. Let's see what the lines are right now on best fight odds. We've got -105, the best available number on Jonathan Martinez, -102, the best available number on Adrian Yanez. So again, virtual dead heat pick 'em here. My brother, please go ahead and give us your thoughts.
Crazy striking matchup, but I think ultimately in the end, I like what I see out of the kicking defense of Yanez. Yeah, he get his low leg chopped a little bit, but he's just waiting for you to throw a kick so he can counter, right? And I don't like what I see out of Martinez's chin. I've seen him drop multiple times on multiple occasions. I think Yanez is probably the hardest hitter he's faced to date, especially with the hands. And I just like how Yanez fights behind that jab. He'll throw 3 jabs in a row just effortlessly. This guy is truly a boxer in MMA in 4-ounce gloves. It's really fun to watch, and it's interesting to see how this guy's been dealing with kicks his whole career, right? Like, he's a boxer. What are you going to go out there and do? Try and box with him? No, that's stupid. So you're going to try and kick him. So he's finding ways already to deal with stuff like this, right? Because he's the boxer. He knows this is MMA. He's got to find a way to deal with kicks. And what we haven't really seen out of him is the grappling. But I'm telling you, Giannis could grapple, man. This guy is constantly working on the MMA game. And just because we haven't seen it doesn't mean he can't do it. And, Martinez is a solid, stout grappler himself. He had success versus Saeed. I think that was more due to Saeed slowing down his cardio. And Saeed is coming up and fighting again, so we'll got to keep an eye on this fight to see how Martinez does, right? Man, I don't know, dude. I like Yanez a lot here in this spot. I think he could be a little bit of a public play per se, but I see a little love for the Martinez side as well. I'm not gonna lie, and I understand why. He has nasty kicks, dude. He's got that Muay Thai style that he brings to the fight. Not really a lot of head movement because he's sitting in that stance trying to avoid getting kicked himself and, fire off kicks right at range. The thing is Yanez is going to find a way to make this into a boxing match. Martinez is going to try and not make it a boxing match. And I think Yanez is going to have more success because he knows the game plan of Martinez here already. And I just don't think Martinez has really dealt with a style like Yanez. It's very unique. He's very crisp with his boxing. And the last time I really saw him go up against a boxer, it was Andre Ewell, and I think he lost that fight, if I'm not mistaken. If not, it was super close, and I believe he lost that one, man. And I think there's a little bit of a chin issue for Martinez. He's been knocked down now 6 times, I believe it has been, in the UFC. In a decent amount of fights, albeit. But, man, this guy, besides the font one, he got knocked down. He's pretty durable, and he could fucking crack, dude. This guy, pardon my language. I mean, this is a late night show. Who the fuck cares? You got to go watch my show with Lou Betcha. I was awful there. Yeah, man, I think Yanez got the power, man. I think he's gonna put Martinez to sleep in the second round with a left hook. What do you think on this one, my man? Are you with me, or am I a square?
I wouldn't say you're a square. I mean, the books are actually favoring Giannis to win by KO as opposed to his decision. They have that more likely. So I think that the books are seeing it a little bit the same way. But when I look at this, I feel like both guys are aware of the fact that their chins are a little bit, in need of protecting, let's say, right? After Adrian Yanez went out there in his last fight, he got clipped early. And he said, I have to be retrospective about the loss. I got over aggressive. I abandoned my game plan, and I should have went out there and just stuck behind it. And you look at some of his other fights in the UFC, he's been very tactical, very thoughtful, even at times defensive, right? Against Davey Grant, focusing on rolling a lot of the shots off his shoulders, making sure he wasn't getting hit cleanly with a lot of those shots. I think that was almost the difference between him and Jonathan Martinez when the two of them took on Davey Grant, is that Jonathan was a little bit more willing to accept risk, and he paid the ultimate price for it at that time. Whereas Yanez didn't take those risks. Then he got a little bit ahead of himself, right? He was like, oh, I can't be finished. I'm in a great spot. And he was letting that momentum get to himself. He was getting over aggressive against Rob Font, thinking, hey, I'm going to close the show on this guy in round one. And then boom, he gets flattened. And I think that humbled him a little bit. Everybody was telling him, you're one of the best boxers in the UFC. He's like, what, 5 fights deep, right? And I think that will get to anybody. He's a young man. But I just think that both of these guys are very talented. I think they're both skilled, and I think that they're both thoughtful. So I do think we're going to see heavy strikes land, but I just would be a little bit surprised if one of these guys just overextends in a big way. I feel like they both respect each other a lot. That's one thing I noticed as well, is that they both said about each other, like, hey, I have a tremendous amount of respect for this guy. So I'm like, you got a lot of respect. What are you going to do? You're going to, patty cake with each other a little bit, be friendly. These are both nice guys, I feel like, too. They're both Latino guys. So I do think they're going to throw down in the pocket a little bit, but would I be surprised if there's some high fiving and some, hey, good shot and some stuff like that, just a little bit more collegial and sparring type atmosphere? That wouldn't blow me away in this spot. I know they're both very aggressive guys, but just in terms of Yanez coming off a KO loss, he might be a little bit more willing to sit back and be hesitant. We just saw Jonathan Martinez, eke his way to a close decision, right? Granted, albeit as an underdog in that spot against the talented Said Nurmagomedov, but he wasn't out there blowing the doors off him either. So I don't know that either one of them is going to force the issue here. I think that they both have different ranges that they want to be at, so they both are going to pick their spots accordingly. I'm kind of leaning towards this fight going the distance, and both guys are over 3-1 on that decision prop. So that was what I ended up giving on Narco Show. I felt like, if I was to look at something on this, I would almost be leaning towards the over. And that's crazy to say because both of these guys have a little bit of a suspect chin. But I just think people are going to feel like this is going to end, really quick, because of what happened to Yanez last time and how he's gotten some knockouts in the UFC. But even a lot of his knockouts in the UFC took some time to materialize, took some time to build into round two. So I just feel like this fight probably is going to go a little bit longer and have a little bit of time to materialize. Do you have any thoughts on the total here?
I think Giannis knocks him out, dude. So I don't want to take that bet because I could see a path to a decision. But I just love what Giannis is doing with boxing in the MMA. Like, he throws kicks too here and there. He's got a good kicking game, but man, this guy, his movement and just his head movement is swift. He's right out of the way of punches. He'll take one to give one. And historically, he's pretty durable. So I expect him to come back here. I think he's more focused. He's got a vengeance, but yeah, I can see this one going over too. It could be a late knockout. Giannis don't got bad cardio. It's not like he's gonna slow down, and Martinez doesn't slow down either. So this is 3 rounds of striking for me.
Awesome. And I would expect a lot of the same too. But to your point, looking at his Instagram, it does look like Giannis has been doing a lot of training on the mat. If there's one thing to motivate you to shoot a takedown, it's getting knocked the hell out. So who knows? Maybe one of these guys tries to mix it up. We often see with these striker versus striker, agreements, let's go out there and have a banger. And then first guy's shooting a takedown in the first round. So wouldn't be surprised if somebody tried to mix it in, but don't know how much success either guy would have if they did. Next up, my man, really fun one, really controversial scrap I've heard some people on the underdog here, but a lot of love for Michel Pereira as well. He's a guy that's a fan favorite, I feel like. He's got a fun style, craziness, right? Invites a little bit of variance to his fights. But this is a guy that got disqualified in a fight he's cruising in against Diego Sanchez, made all the boneheaded decisions you could ever imagine against Tristan Connolly. The UFC sets him up for an easy money opportunity, in my opinion, against Wonderboy. And yes, that's a hard fight, but I'm talking about when you're going to try and get a ranked step up in competition and you're getting a 40-year-old in the division that's on a bit of a skid. I mean, you can't really ask for much more in terms of career progression. And this guy kind of fumbled that bag, right? And also made the UFC look stupid because they gave him this opportunity. They put it in a big situation. He misses the weight. Then they can't put on the fight. So is that his fault? Not really. But then they can't book a replacement either. So it all just went into shambles. And I've noticed that the UFC tends to punish people when they do that. Are they doing that here? I don't know. That's for other people to decide, right? Andre Petroski, he was on vacation, allegedly in Thailand, but it looked to me like he was getting some work at Bangtan Muay Thai. It's one of the best camps in the world. So I'm thinking to myself, hey, guy's probably getting some work in, having some fun too. And he said to himself, man, this guy's not a real middleweight. He's a welterweight at the UFC level who's been scraping by wins against a pretty mediocre level of competition. Let's just call a spade a spade. Santiago Ponzinibbio, a good fighter, a little bit past his sell-by date. Let's be fair about that. Nico Price got knocked out by Robbie Lawler, who's 40 years of age. He has not looked very good in his recent fights. He's looked old and rickety. And by the way, if you want to get technical, if you want to ride with me here, Michel Pereira could have gotten disqualified in that fight too. He did a jumping, flying back kick to the head, which is illegal. And Nico Price looks up at the referee like, what are you doing? And the referee does nothing because he's incompetent. So no disrespect, but just watching that back, like, again, a competent referee, it's like, bro, what are you doing? You just did a jumping kick to a grounded opponent. Completely illegal. So I think that this guy is highly volatile and at a new weight class with a bunch of question marks to be had. Last time he's at 185, he's getting slapped by Dusko Todorovic, of all people, on the regional scene in the first round. So is his chin great? I'm not sold on that. I'm not positive about that. Has he been super active? No, he has not. He was coming off a long layoff against Wonderboy, misses the weight, and people are saying, hey, he doesn't have to cut weight here. With all due respect, he said he was cutting 43 pounds to make 170 pounds. Yeah, he does have to cut weight here. By my mathematics, he's still got to cut like 20 pounds. So Andre Petroski says he could do it on short notice. He's probably got to cut a similar amount of weight. So they're going to cut the same amount of weight. They're going to be the similar size based on the face-off. They look about the same size to me. So what's going to happen when they're out there? I feel like Petroski has a decent chance of taking this guy to the mat. When has he been tested in the wrestling and the grappling in the UFC? It just hasn't happened. It happened against Tristan Connolly, the 145-pounder that he fought, that never got another win in the UFC, as best my memory serves. So is he just now like suddenly immune to grappling? I don't know. And I just think this is a fight that presents many questions of unknowns. Unknowns push the fight closer to 50-50 for me. I guess the known is that Pereira was preparing for another fight already. So then he should be a little bit more prepared for the date theoretically, but he could be overtrained. He could be rusty. So I just feel like the unknowns here again make me think, what if Andre Petroski swings a hammer and knocks this guy out in the first 5 minutes? Is that an impossible scenario? I don't think so. He's an athletic guy. He knows that he's got a short time to win this fight in all likelihood based on his own assessment. But here's the other thing. Things that fatigue you, being on the feet, getting beat up. If he gets easy takedowns here, why wouldn't he just be able to just hang out on top? Pfeiffer and Brady both say they don't like Andre taking this fight. Salute to them. Andre has done his own thing, right? He's done his own thing in the UFC. He's been doing quite well, right? Where's his foible? Where's his mess up? Hasn't happened, right? He's been on the precipice. He's had some ugly moments, but he's done the job. He's done everything asked of him so far. So now the UFC calls him, hey, we're in a pinch. Can you come do this? Imagine his stock with the company if he delivers in this spot. And by the way, I think that the UFC purposefully, and this is my opinion, I might be wrong about this, but it's an opinion that I've had for a while. If you go back and listen, I've said this on multiple shows. Roman Kopylov was sent out there, I felt like, with a job to go murder this man and make him pay for the fact that he had missed weight the fight prior, if I'm thinking of the right fight. But there's other examples too where they see you miss weight, you mess up the fight card, you screw with whatever they've got planned. It's annoying. And they want to make an example. Don't do that again. Don't miss weight. So in my opinion, they look for guys that are a little bit less known, less popular, and there's tough stylistic matchups. They're just difficult to deal with. So Andre Petroski, how many guys in the middleweight division are running to sign that contract? Nick Maximov was a minus 400 favorite. He's a primary grappler. He's a primary wrestler. He's got the good cardio. Everybody all week touted him about how good he was and how good he could wrestle and how good the cardio was and what he was going to do and push. Did you see the Brendon fight? Look at how he pushed in that fight. And he got instantly choked unconscious. Not a debate, no controversial tap, this and that, just snoring on the mat. That's what he did in like under a minute, right? So Andre Petroski, when he can speed trial a guy who's a primary wrestler and grappler, I just don't know that it's an impossibility that he does that to Pereira. Now, will Pereira try and be more evasive than Maximov? Yeah, I do think so. But is Petroski going to try and be evasive? I don't think so. I think he's going to try and grab a hold of this guy and get the win. And you look at his losses on paper, man, they've aged fine. Aaron Jeffrey is a good fighter. Brian Battle's a good fighter. Like, where is the gross, egregious loss that tells us he's got terrible cardio? He's gotten third round finishes now in the UFC on more than one occasion. So he does look to spend himself for victory. But I'd rather my guy ends the fight on E with the victory than, it's like, I'm fresh enough that I could go another 5 rounds, but they lose the decision and they didn't do enough. So he spends himself looking for victories, and I feel like he's going to do that again and fight hard for my money personally. How do you feel about this one, man?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, I love that breakdown, and yeah, he's definitely the biggest guy. The biggest, strongest grappler Pereira's faced by far. And here's the thing, though, man. Here's the thing. I went back and watched the last fight for Petroski, and his striking. The last few fights, I watched all of them, but the last fight really showed his striking just isn't there, man. And I'm glad he's working on it, right? But if you're going tit for tat with GM3 was having success in the striking, and I don't think GM3 is a complete wash, but he's super slow.
GM3 butchered Bruno Silva, and he butchered Makhmudmuradov. These are facts.
For sure, I think Pereira is just a little bit quicker, and I think he's going to be hard to get a hold of because of the lateral movement, especially in round 1, right, where Petroski is probably his strongest. But that's when Pereira is at his freshest as well, right? You look at Pereira round 1, he's moving around, he's dancing, he's having fun, and guys like that are hard to get a hold of unless you could strike with him. Yeah, Petroski could crack him, like you said. It's possible. But he has about an overhand right. Like, that's what I think his striking is limited to. Not that that can't work if you set it up with the takedown, but that's all he got to really worry about here, in my opinion, as far as the striking goes. And yeah, you're good if you get the fight to the ground, but you got to be able to get the fight to the ground at the end of the day. That's the thing here with me. I see the upside. I see the reasoning for taking him, but I'm going to go low-end confidence like Michel Pereira. I'll put him at the bottom of the parlay, right? Because I just think the lateral movement's what's going to give Petroski trouble early, and he himself also gasses. And we could see possibly better cardio here for Pereira at 185. Like, there is a lot of unknowns, so yeah, it's got to be dog or pass for me is what I'm saying kind of at the end of the day when it comes from a betting standpoint. But I'm just throwing it in the parlay at the lowest, and we're trying to get a full entire card. I'm trying to pick a winner in each fight. So I did the film. Originally, I was going to bet Petroski. Then I watched, and I'm like, man, this guy's striking just ain't there. He's got good grappling. He's very strong from the top control. I love the gym he's coming from. I don't like that he's taking this fight on short notice. But I do agree with what you said. I think this is a kind of, FU from the UFC for messing up the last fight, because this is a tough matchup. Who knows Andre Petroski? You went from fighting Wonder Boy, a pretty winnable matchup, but maybe he worked some grappling for the lead up to that Wonder Boy fight. Maybe offensive wrestling was in the repertoire. So, yeah, man, I don't think he could. We don't know. Like you said, you don't know. You didn't say, like, I know, he's going to get completely washed, but yeah, Petroski's probably the best grappler he faced. If he gets a hold of him, this could get super greasy, and I see why he would be a live underdog. Yeah, 100%, man. Good breakdown.
Love it, my man. I think that this is a good fight, fun scrap. Just looking at the prop market, Petrosky by sub, it's like plus 700. That's something that I'm definitely going to take a look at. Ends by sub, also something I might consider. My guy Narco pointed out, great point, that if Petrosky does gas out here, could just be, fish out of water a little bit down the stretch. I think that the very public side is going to be Pereira by KO, but I think that if you wanted to get a little bit more creative, maybe he gets the submission when he gasses out, like Brian Battle was able to do. But in any case, I think it should be a fun scrap. And I just think Andre Petrosky, so far, he's not lost a fight in the UFC, so he's putting a lot on the line here to come and take this fight. Is he doing that just for the money? Does he need the money that bad? I don't know. Like, it just seems like if I'm him, I'm only taking this fight if I think he could, if I think I'm going to whoop his ass, right? Like that's why I would take this fight. So maybe he's wrong, but that's what I would be doing if I'm in his career shoes. So all I could do is try and assume from that. So I think that the UFC called this guy and they're like, bro, we got a $50,000 bounty on this guy's head. If you submit this man in embarrassing fashion, it's 50 grand in your pocket. And I think he's like, I'm on my way. So Anaconda round 1. That's what I'm calling for here. Peace, love, and chicken grease. I hope it works out. Next up, we got Christian Rodriguez taking on Cameron Saaiman. And guys, I have not leaned into the face-offs and the weigh-ins as much on every matchup because I don't know if it's always as relevant on every matchup. But I'm looking here and I'm like, there is a size discrepancy here. And it's not what you might think, right? When I thought about this, I'm like, man, C-Rod missed weight. He's going to be huge. And then I looked at these two guys squaring off and I'm like, holy shit. Cameron Saaiman looks a lot bigger than him. So I'll double check and make sure that there wasn't a shoes to no shoes dynamic or something that I'm not seeing here. But this guy missed weight against Raul Rosas Jr. He's been given a tough assignment, I would say. His toughest assignment, I would say, in the UFC, besides Raul Rosas Jr. Rank order those how you will. But Cameron Saaiman, a little bit more proven in terms of how many wins he's gotten against the higher level guys.
Oh, sorry. You said Cameron Saimon's his second toughest test besides Raul? I would say Pierce.
No, I'm saying he's his toughest test. But I'm saying, depending on how you want to rank order that, if you think that Raul Rosas Jr. is his toughest test, then he's at worst his second toughest test. But
you don't think Jonathan Pierce is?
Oh, but that's not even in the same weight class. But I guess that's fair.
Yeah, I would say, that has to be his toughest test. Pierce is super large. That was on short notice. The fact he even survived that fight and had opportunities to finish there was crazy for me. But I kind of interrupted your breakdown, but I wasn't sure if that's what you were trying to say. So you think at 135, you're saying Rosas, toughest test, if not, got to be Saaiman.
I'm saying that for C-Rod, I think his toughest test at 135 is Saaiman, right? Because here's the things that make it a tricky fight for me. If Duplessis was on the card, I'm all in on Saaiman, right? But like, it's the first time they're not fighting together. They're not on the pay-per-view, right? So now it's a little bit less. But I think they might be seeing, like, can this kid do it on his own? Do we have to put him with DDP and run the whole show out there for Team CIT? Or can we run this kid out there on his own, give him a tough assignment, and see if he delivers? I think for Cameron Saaiman, this is his hardest fight in the UFC as well. So I don't think either guy is getting an easy matchup here. But what I think about is the fact that Saaiman looks a little bit bigger at this face-off. I think about the fact that, that last fight, Raul Rosas Jr. could have been awarded a 10-8 for that first round. It was a fight where I wouldn't have necessarily said that, but just, again, pretty one-sided round 1 for Raul Rosas Jr. And as the fight went on, you saw the skill of C-Rod borne out over time, but you also saw a huge adrenaline dump from Raul Rosas Jr., and he did not finish it, which I thought was a little bit concerning, right? Just from a finishing instinct standpoint. Reyes Cortez, he's a guy that I think he could have finished if he had turned up on him. Didn't get to finish there. So I just think of a guy like, C-Rod as a guy who's still waiting to break out and have that like huge come through win, get the finish. And maybe he does that here, right? He is a guy that last time out, he missed weight. I thought he was going to underperform against Raul Rosas Jr. He looked the part, right? But eventually that bill's going to come due. The company's not happy about that, I'm sure. And he now did it again. But the fact that you miss weight and also look like the smaller guy, it's almost like mind-boggling to me. So I think he's a very talented guy. I think he's a very skilled fighter. But is there something wrong with the preparation? Are we in the wrong weight class? Is the weight cut too much? Or are we just cheating? Because that's the other thing is like at a certain point, you have to ask that question because coming in overweight by a significant margin, yeah, giving away a portion of the purse is no big deal if you get the win bonus, right? So I think he might be making that trade-off. And I, again, think that that's a little bit, something that the UFC should be trying to prevent from a long-term fairness standpoint. But I'm curious to hear, man, why don't you give us your breakdown? What do you think about this fight? Fascinating, closely lined matchup.
Yeah, that's what I said when I came into the backstage. I'm like, man, my friend said Saaiman looks bigger, right? And we kind of checked it out, right? But very interesting. Yeah, I think 100%, dude. He missed by 4 pounds exactly. What's the limit you can miss at? 4 pounds, right? So sure, he probably is gonna take the 30% loss on his purse. I think for the extra few pounds, especially when you see Saaiman how big he is. This could probably wind up getting into some grappling exchanges where he's going to want the size advantage. We've seen in the past where's Simon's weakness. It's on a takedown defense. Kozlo, I think, is a good grappler in his own rights, but he's not as good of a striker to set up the takedowns. And Christian Rodriguez, I like how he floats from position to position. Well, I took him in his last fight, right? I took him versus. I have a lot of experience betting people on this card, especially in the main 5. Just the main 5 fights, right? But yeah, like Yanez is one I have a lot of experience. This one, but C-Rod, dude, I've taken him every single fight by submission. I like that bet, but the bookmakers are getting hip to it. I took him plus 1,000 submission versus Joshua Weems, bro. As crazy as it sounds, but Weems was looking to take the fight to the ground. I thought it would go a little bit different. I thought C-Rod would rock him first with the striking. I like what I see out of the striking of C-Rod. He took that fight versus Pierce on short notice. And, Pierce had a lot of success in the wrestling, was a lot bigger than him. But C-Rod showed that he had heart. He showed that he has good 3-round cardio. He showed he can not just be the hammer, which he was in the last fight. He could be the nail. He's shown that in multiple fights now. So, I like how this guy stays calm through the adversity. He doesn't get really too overly excited. And Saaiman, I think, with his striking is really good, but he could overextend a little bit sometimes. And that's the thing. Christian Rodriguez is just so tight with everything that he finds those efficient moments to get the takedowns, get the big moments. And, yeah, man, I see why this is close. I see why there's love on both sides. I think I hear a lot of love from both sides personally. A lot of people saying a lot of people are on C-Rod. But, yeah, I could see why people would be on C-Rod here. I think just the takedown defense of Saaiman has a lot to lack. And we haven't seen really Rodriguez offensively wrestle. But that doesn't mean he doesn't have it, right? So I think at some point he's going to use the striking to set up the takedowns, get on top, and float from position to position, stay on top, actually, which I don't think other people like Kozlo or Terrance Mitchell were able to do in their fights. So that being said, I'm on C-Rod here, and I think this one ends probably either in the 3rd round or a decision.
Yeah, I also think this fight's probably going to go over the betting total. I don't really see either one of these guys finishing the other at a high clip. I think they're both pretty tough, durable guys. The one thing is, I do feel like C-Rod, he might be a touch more, I don't even know what the right word is, but basically just like physically developed, right? Like Cameron Saaiman, I actually think looks bigger than him, but just in terms of the age, that's the only thing that gives me pause about Saaiman is he's a very young guy. He's 22 years of age. And I was saying, earlier, I feel like at 25 right now, I would whoop my ass from 22 years of age, just from the physical strength and all the other things that you accrue, the experience as well. So I just feel like, C-Rod, if he had a perfect preparation and made weight and everything like that, it probably would have checked enough boxes for me. But I do think that this is just a fight where he's not a super persistent wrestler, right? Raul Rosas Jr. was like insistent on the wrestling in that fight, where I just worry that he could get outworked in this fight. He does have the reach advantage on paper, but then it didn't look like it when they faced off against each other. So let's see what happens here, man. Fascinating fight, but we've said plenty about it. So we can move to the next one, my man. Darren Elkins, TJ Brown. You got any strange or spectacular thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I like Brown here, man. I just don't like what I'm seeing out of Darren Elkins, man. He's coming off of surgery. He's 39 years old. He's clearly slowing down. I think it's a round one knockout for TJ Brown, bro. The way he was cracking Algeo, he's got power in his hands. He's willing to take a shot to give a shot. I think if he avoids the grappling here from Elkins, right? The telegraph takedowns from Elkins, I think he could have a lot of success on the stand up here. And I think TJ Brown makes a lot of boneheaded decisions. That's why people would be hesitant to bet him probably at this price. Maybe even take a dog shot on Elkins. But I think Elkins is just a bit of a public dog this week. And honestly, I don't want to be betting a 39-year-old coming off of surgery. So, yeah, I'm going to go with TJ Brown here. I'm pretty high confidence on it. I like what he does in the jiu-jitsu also. He could get back to his feet at times as well using the jiu-jitsu. So I don't think it's a complete wash on the ground. And, yeah, just the age of Elkins, man. He's really, really slowing down. And I think if you didn't see that Jonathan Pierce fight where he somehow survived again and he just went off the Cub Swanson face plant loss, yeah, this line does make sense, folks. So, yeah, give me TJ Brown here. I don't have an in-depth breakdown on it, but, yeah. What'd you think about this one, my man?
Yeah, there was a couple things that stood out to me. I don't want to pretend that this is like unique or proprietary information or something, but it did just seem a little bit weird to me after the face-off. TJ Brown just kind of like limped weirdly away from the exchange. Like, I don't know if he like stood too tall, like trying to like lock out his knees or something and just got a dead leg or something. Maybe it's as innocuous as that, but it just looked to me like he was kind of like limping a little bit, favoring one leg over the other. So that was mildly concerning for me, because otherwise I totally agree with you. Like if this is just a completely above board fight, based on what we've seen from these guys recently, I just feel like we've seen TJ Brown. It like bonehead is actually probably the word of the week, right? I think everybody's used that word to describe him. It's a very fair word, right? It's a very apt word. I think that when you look at him, he's also kind of a spaz, right? And I say that out of a place of affection. I've had coaches, wrestling coaches, jiu-jitsu coaches, all that call me a spaz. I am a little bit spastic, right? So from one spaz to another, TJ Brown, no harm, no foul. But his spastic nature plays out in like putting himself in bad choking situations and just making really critical mistakes. But to your point, busting up Bill Algeo, landing the clean shots like that, I don't think that, we'd see Darren Elkins doing that, period, point blank, at this stage of the game. So I have to favor TJ Brown here, but I'm just worried about, exactly what he's bringing to the octagon. So for me, I just think that this is going to end violently, and the lines don't necessarily reflect that. So probably going to try and take advantage of that and not get too cute. So read between the lines there, folks. Like, I won't give away everything I'm looking at, but just, again, pretty straightforward. If you heard my words, then you know what I'm thinking. But next up, we've got a really fun one. And I just want to shout out one more time. Our guy, Nate Brown, did leave a dono before. And I always say, if anybody drops a dono, I will definitely read it. And I put it up on the screen before, but I realized I never read it out loud. He says, Irina inside, Cameron money line, under for TJ and Elkins. We're on the same wavelength, my brother. And then he says, Sodiq, take it to the bank. Let's go. So shout out to you, my man, for the dono. Really appreciate you. And shout out to everybody who's rocking with us live. We got 53 homies in the house, and I hope that each and every one of you guys drop that like as well if you're enjoying the conversation, because I know I am. And we got Tainara, Thai Panther, Lisboa in the next fight. She's taking on UFC debutant Ravena Oliveira. I had Lisboa ITD last time out. I thought that she was going to get it done there. I thought that she had a very favorable matchup to make her UFC debut against a Jessica Rose Clark, who I really felt like was on the way out. I had been fading her on the way out. I had been fading her multiple times in a row. And my only regret is that I don't think I got to a track bet on Lisboa by sub, which I did say was very live in that spot. My thinking was don't get cute, plus 275 on the ITD. And she was able to, have some success there. But she was open the dog, closed a pick'em type price, maybe a slight favorite on the Lisboa side last time out. Now she's making her second appearance. She's a massive favorite, relative to that against a debuting Ravena Oliveira. And what do I talk about frequently? It's just 50-50 should push the line a little bit closer. If you have unknowns, right? That's what you see is an unknown, something I don't know. I can't evaluate. I can't put a number on it. Okay. That has to push the line just a little bit closer to 50-50 out of principle. So Ravena Oliveira doesn't have that much tape out there, right? Doesn't have all that much footage. But what have we seen? I would say radical progression over time. Like the fact that she went from getting Ezekiel choked. And did you see that footage, my man?
Yeah, it's an old fight, right? So
yeah, that was like 4 or 5 years ago, right? But to go from that to a girl that's winning fights by submission to looking like you have some core competencies on the ground, it's just a massive development in 5 years, 4 years. And I think that it shows that she has athletic talent, just innate athleticism, right? At 21 years of age, a little bit awkward, a little bit slow in her mechanics, maybe not all there with her knowledge of the game in jiu-jitsu. No problem. She's accrued some more experience. She's gotten a little bit better. She's taken her time in terms of her career, hasn't rushed it, gotten too many pro fights, taken too much damage, ruined her record. She's taken it step by step along the way, gotten better over time. And I think that she represents a big unknown. How many times have we seen a Brazilian girl that nobody's ever heard of, that nobody's on the radar, nobody's touting and talking about, comes in as an underdog, wins the fight, and then the next fight, they're a big favorite. Like they just get absorbed into the UFC culture. Oh my God, this girl's a hammer. And I think that Natalia Silva, prime example, plus 200 against Jasmine Jasudavicius, minus 600 2 fights later. So how quickly things can change, right? In terms of market perception. Tainara Lisboa, here's the truth. She's a little bit older, right? She's coming into this fight against Jessica Rose Clark. Why did I fade Jessica Rose Clark? I thought one girl was highly motivated. I thought one girl was not motivated. I thought one girl was getting better. I thought one girl was not getting better. I think both of these girls are getting better. I think Tainara Lisboa gets better every fight. But here's the thing. She has a second career in combat now. She was already a world-class striker. So she's been working on her ground game, arguably for the same amount of time as Ravena Oliveira. But I think Ravena Oliveira, I'm trying to say this respectfully, has a little bit more junk in the trunk. I think she has a little bit more heft to her. I think she has a little bit more weight. I think she might have a little lower center of gravity and be able to take this fight to the mat potentially, where Tainara Lisboa is still a developing fighter, right? And that's for me a point of concern on that side. I think that Ravena is a girl that is coming into this fight with a lot of motivation. Granted, here's the thing you have to tick to the other side is like she has a win in the UFC. She's gotten the experience under her belt. The UFC likes her. She's a commentator on Brazilian Fight Pass. So they like Tainara Lisboa, right? But I just think to myself, this isn't a fight that screams Tainara Lisboa easy win to me in the same way. I think she's going to meet a lot more resistance here against Ravena Oliveira than she did against Jessica Rose Clark even. So for me, I'm almost leaning towards this underdog play because I think it's a big market overcorrection. But I could be wrong. This could be a clear setup fight, right? That footage really was embarrassing. She was in one Ezekiel choke, the position switch, she's on top, she gets Ezekiel choke from top full guard. That's not a good look. But I just don't think she's a bad fighter. I think she's gotten much better since then. What do you think?
yeah, I saw that fight a year ago. I think that's the fight like we all watched on YouTube, right? The 0-0 opponent. Yeah, man, I don't know, dude. I like Lisboa's striking. I like how she could take one to give one. The Muay Thai style is, pretty good, but like I said, not a lot of head movement to avoid the kicks, here's the thing, man. Here's the thing. I think this fight goes under 2.5, and it's shaded to the under 2.5, right? Both these girls are finishers from what you've seen historically. Even Lisboa got the finish at the UFC level. And like Liam said, there's upside to the finishing ability of Oliveira on the ground. I just don't like what I see out of her striking, right? I saw the fight versus the 0-0 girl. I can't remember her name, but it's the fight on YouTube. We all watched it, right? We all watched the fight. The girl was coming forward. She used her grappling in rounds 2 and 3 to get on top, but she can crack. She has a nice body kick. She throws wide, a little bit wider punches, a little bit stronger punches, but it's a little bit more one at a time. Whereas Lisboa is throwing combos. In the Rose Clark fight, I like how she threw extra punches. Rose Clark was throwing 2-3, and she was throwing 4 or 5, and just the last 2 punches were the ones that were really connecting. And yeah, I like that about her. I think she's the favorite for the reason in the spot, but you're 100% right. This is a market overcorrection. Sharp, bettors are going to be tending to look for a dog or pass spot in this one. So yeah, very interesting points. I think she does have grappling upside, but I think if this one stays on the feet, Lisboa's gotten a lot better with the grappling as well, but she's not, 100% clean there, like you said. But if it stays on the feet and this is just a striking matchup, which I don't think it will be, I think Oliveira is going to try and grapple. But yeah, man, I think Lisboa is going to piece her up. I think she's going to piece her up with the speed, with the combinations. And I think ultimately that's what's going to win her this fight, man. But yeah, really risky. Love the points you made. And maybe got to take a little step back on Lisboa, but say, hey, maybe there is ways she could lose this fight. Because like you said, man, Natalia Silva, she looked a lot different. The difference with that, though, was like a two-year layoff. I think this fight that I'd seen of this girl was like in 2022. So, yeah, about the same time, right? So a lot could change. Very great points. And I think we talked about this earlier in the week, just looking at the VSIN splits. It's something like 20% of the money was on Oliveira or something, or 30, and like 80%, or no, 20% of the bets, like 80% of the money. I'm like, Liam, what does that mean? It's like, it means a big bet came in on Oliveira. And yeah, the line moved, so I like that plus 300 number, plus 310. Somebody probably took a stab on it.
Well, you know something? Are you familiar with Galpao de Luta?
No, dude, I have no idea who that is.
That's the gym where Jailton Almeida trains. You have any idea where Ravena Oliveira's been getting some work in?
Oh, yeah, baby. There you go.
Galpao de Luta. Galpao de Luta. Galpao de Luta. And by the way, I was on her Instagram, and you know what else I saw? She was calling out girls in the UFC for a while. So I feel like she might have been like one of these sneak contracts. Where you guys remember her Contender Series bout? Nah, me neither. So why did she not have to earn her way in? I don't know. It's an interesting note. Maybe she got the Jailton Almeida seal of approval. Maybe she got the one of these people to make the call, because Eduarda Mora just went through the Contender Series, right? She did it the old-fashioned way. She had to go out there and get the win. So I just think that this is an interesting matchup. And, just again, when you're talking about, I was trying to enlighten people on Tainara Lisboa when she was coming into the UFC. I was telling people, hey, she had these fights against Joanna Jędrzejczyk and these girls back in the day, but I felt like people didn't know who she was, right? And I was telling people like, yo, this ITD is interesting. Now everybody's like, Tainara Lisboa, God's gift to fighting. It's like, well, y'all didn't even know who she was last fight, and now she's just the talk of the town. So for me, that's enough to make me look towards the dog or passing on the fight, largely. But the other thing is, I will say, just to close the book on this one, I was on my guy Narco's show, and so I promised him I would give one pick for each fighter along the way. Lisboa, last time out, submitted a girl who is very submittable, in my view, and so that has nerfed her submission price. It's disgustingly low now. Her KO price is higher than her sub price. I think she's much more likely to win this fight by KO than by sub. Or do you disagree? Right? It's like she's a much better striker than grappler.
I think that's my read on this fight. I think Lisboa knocks her out, or she gets submitted by Oliveira.
And here's what I could tell you: at plus 340, that's what you can get on Lisboa by KO. Here's the other thing, though: you could get the fight to end by sub at like plus 200. Why would you not want to cover both sides instead of taking the plus 275 on Lisboa by sub when she's got a handful in her career?
Yeah, so that's why I'm probably going to stick with the under here. That's my bet in this fight, the under 2.5. I really think that's a good bet. I think it's either, like I said, a Lisboa KO or we see Oliveira, make those improvements on it. And it's not like Oliveira couldn't KO her. She hits hard, bro. Like from the film I did see, if this girl connects, it's gonna make you react. And Rose Clark was able to connect on this girl, and like I said, she'll take one to give one. The head movement isn't really there from the Muay Thai stance. So very interesting points. And like I said, you don't often see under 2.5 shaded in a women's MMA fight. It's not minus 135, which is what this line's sitting at. I believe I got it at minus 120. So not a bad look.
I like where your head's at, my man. I agree with it. And I think that there's some potential value to be had in the prop market. So again, y'all read between the lines, and best of luck. If you guys have any questions, comments, or concerns, always fire those away, whether that's in the comments section below, whether that's in the chat live during the show, or whether that's on social media at LiamPicksFights. Always happy to try and help out if I'm able to do so. But with that being said, the talk of the streets in terms of our comment section right now is all about this next fight. So let's move on to Terrance McKinney taking on Brendon Marotte. And I will start it off with my guy, Jewish Better. How do you feel about this fight? Do you think there's any betting value to be had? And how are you attacking the market?
Nah, man, there's no value. There's no value here. But McKinney's going to knock him out. He's going to either knock him out or he's going to use his wrestling to get on top, take the back, finish him there. I just don't like what I see out of the competition of Marotte. I think this is pretty fairly easy, and barring McKinney just completely gassing in this fight, getting into the later rounds, I think we're going to see some problem. But watching the Nazim Sadikov fight, he was a lot, and the Mike Brendon fight specifically, especially versus Mike Brendon. Let's just go with the Mike Brendon as an example. I think he was a lot more calm and concise in his striking than in past fights. Like versus Drew Dober, did you go back and watch that fight? It was literally just whoosh, 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 like Francis Ngannou versus Rosenstrike, just wild. Dude was trying to take his life, and he was close to doing so. But Drew Dober is tough as hell, tough as nails. Going to be a hard guy to put away. And the adrenaline dump just happened straight up. Ismail Bonfim was able to just absolutely butcher this guy. This wasn't even a really competitive in the striking. But then going back and looking at his next few fights, I thought he did pretty good versus Sadikov. Eventually got to the takedown, took the back. Round 2, gets put in some bad positions. Maybe had to do with a cage grab, maybe not. I'll leave that up to the viewer to decide. But yeah, that doesn't get your arm put behind your back and get you choked out either at the end of the day. So pretty interesting loss for McKinney, but tough level of competition. Like Marotte is none of these guys he's faced. And then when you put him up against a guy like Mike Brendon, what happens? He absolutely butchers him. And like I was just getting at, he was a little bit more patient in that fight with the shots he was choosing. And he knew he was going to get Brendon out of there. You saw it. I think if he doesn't underestimate Marotte, he doesn't go crazy for the finish, eventually he's going to find that shot, or he's going to find that shot. And when I mean shot, I mean wrestling shot. Get this fight to the ground. He uses jiu-jitsu to take out Marotte here. So yeah, give me Marotte to get into the UFC, but by murder, him getting murdered. Yeah, that's all I got on this one. I don't think the New England Cartel is winning 2 in a week.
You think it's going to be a gang initiation, huh? But when I'm looking at this one, man, I'll just tell you, like, the way that I bet on MMA, you'll never, ever, 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 ever see me laying minus 600 on a guy like Terrance McKinney. It's just not going to happen. Now, when I'm looking at this fight on paper, Terrance should definitely win the fight. He's the more seasoned guy, more experienced, fought better guys, fought the better level of competition. All that is definitely true. But I also think that Terrance has a style that invites some volatility. I don't think that there's any discounting that. So, yes, I expect him to win. Yes, I'm leaning towards him getting the win and the finish here in impressive fashion. But New England Cartel, it is a serious gym. It is the gym that produces winners. It produces UFC level fighters. They just got another guy signed to the UFC. And by the way, the UFC likes these guys, right? Who are they managed by? Tyson Chartier, their coach. That's easy to do business with, right? That's simple, straightforward relationship for the UFC, for the matchmakers. He seems to be very willing to just put his guys in there to fight 25 minutes against the most murderous killers in the division, right? So again, I'm not even criticizing Tyson Chartier. I'm just saying, like, the guy is gung-ho for the fight game. He's all about it. He'll take his guy, move him from Boston to Nashville on short notice to fight Corey Sandhagen. It's like this guy will make the decision that's good for the company. and himself and maybe his guys too. So I think that our guy Just Win is right to point out that New England Cartel punching bag, right? He's a little bit hittable for sure, but we have seen him survive, right? He's never been finished. I think that's a good point that was brought up in the chat as well. Do I expect him to get finished here? Yeah. But my lying eyes have deceived me before. And I do know that Terrance McKinney has a lot of losses inside the distance for a guy who's so heavily favored. 6 losses inside the distance. Also, Sean Woodson, not a prolific finisher. Certainly not at the UFC level. Knocked him out easily when he started to tire. Derek Minner, fixed fighter, complete screw job jabroni, out there submitting him in the first round. Like, just things that are mildly concerning. Ismail Bonfim. Everybody was telling me this guy is the second coming. And I had the Benoit Saint Denis plus 250 ticket when that guy got absolutely steamrolled. So was he that good, or did he just look that good against Terrance McKinney when he just landed anything he wanted? And Terrance looked shook in that fight. So I think that Terrance is going to come out with a lot of confidence here and try and blow this guy out of the water. That's what I expect. And that's what should happen. But my question is, like, if that does not happen, does he just cardio dump? Because we've seen that many times. So I think that if you want to be on the Marotte side, the numbers are very wide. They're like 26-1, 30-1, 50-1, whatever the hell it is for rounds 2 and 3. I would not hate those shots. I think that if you system bet round 2 and 3 on McKinney opponents, you'll probably make money over time. Even if you just do that now until the end of his UFC career, he's laid out the blueprint. He's never been to a decision in his career. So I just think that he's a killer be killed archetype, and he's minus 600. So good luck. God bless. I think he should win. But I'm just saying, like, when you're talking about the mathematics behind it, it's like you're playing with very thin margins now. Let's bring up the handy dandy Action Network calculator at minus 600. We're talking about a legitimate 85.7% implied probability. I think a puncher's chance is around 10 to 15%. That's my God's honest truth opinion about the variance in MMA. Puncher's chance encompassing random injury, guy misses weight and looks like a fraction of himself, all these kind of different things that can happen, right? I put that about 10 to 15%. So everything else for me is where I'm trying to cap within those margins. And I just feel like I can't really justify laying it when I feel like there couldn't really be an edge for me on a line like this, period. But please go ahead.
Can I say the last time you said that? Those exact words you said, that versus Cody Brundage versus Jacob Malkoun. So there you go.
The music from Curb, if you guys would indulge me there, but in any case,
it just goes to show what you're saying is true, bro. Like,
I always just think about, like, Terrance McKinney, pretty good wrestler, but would you have ever said Nazim Sadikov is going to easily out-grapple this guy in the second round? I mean, I would have never thought that in a million years, dude. Even if he got tired, I was like, he's not going to get easily out-grappled like that. And he got easily out-grappled. I thought he would have got knocked out on the feet. Okay, fair play. Like, that's what happened before. To get just folded up on the mat, like, that's where you're supposed to be good. Where are your wrestling instincts? Where did things kick in? His athleticism edge here is gross. He's going to be the way more athletic guy early. So what I would encourage this guy, if I'm in the New England cartel, I'm like, brother, a gangster is well within his rights to run for the first round and a half. So run, brother. He should be like Forrest and just take off. Don't look back. And when Terrance McKinney starts to get tired of chasing him, that would be the time to try and spring on him like a cobra. But that being said, man, we can move to the next fight. We got Irina Alekseeva, Russian Ronda, back in the octagon to take on Melissa Dixon, the UFC newcomer. My brother, what do you got on this one?
Yeah, this is probably like my least interesting fight of the night. Alekseeva, I'm going with Dixon here. I'll just be flat out with you. I think the cardio advantage is what I see, and Alekseeva is kind of a round one or bust fighter for me. Yeah, she's very aggressive in that first round as well, and that's what she did versus Edgar. She absolutely overwhelmed her, but Edgar's not the highest level of competition at the end of the day anyway. And that knee bar finish was a little bit sus. Like, another fighter passes her guard there, and that knee bar doesn't work. I'm questioning if she continues to, fight. What I'm basically getting at is I think she's a good hammer. I don't think she's a good nail. And eventually, if Melissa Dixon is able to survive that first round, I think she has grappling upside the later this fight goes. The thing I will say, though, is although I've seen Irina, Alekseeva in some really bad grappling positions in some of her fights on the bottom position, Dixon, man, she'll have these girls, flattened out, belly down, and 10 seconds later they're back to their feet. These girls she's giving up position, and it's from making mistakes. She has 5 fights only professionally. This girl's not immune to making mistakes herself. So yeah, dude, just when saying Ronda KO plus 1100, I could see that, man. But I think if you're gonna take a stab on Alekseeva, do it in round 1, because I think that's where most likely her win outcome relies here, is in the earlier rounds when she has that cardio. Dixon, I've seen her fight. She doesn't really slow down. Alekseeva, it's a big difference from round 1 to round 2. And that's what I got on this one. I'm betting a cardio advantage, not a really strong lean. This is my least confident fight on the card.
Yeah, man, I'm kind of with you. I don't feel super bullish on this, but like, let's think about the pricing dynamic where Tainara Lisboa gets the win in the finish. So now she's a massive favorite against the UFC debutante about whom very little is known. And I may have to sneeze here, but I'm going to try and power through it. We've got Irina. Oh, goodness gracious. There it is. So, big blessings. Sorry about that, folks. My train of thought went out my body with that sneeze for sure. Thank you, my man. But in any case, right, let's just talk about the matchup here. We got Melissa Dixon. She's coming in. She doesn't have the UFC experience. She doesn't have those wins. She's got good wins on the regional scene, I suppose. But how many times have we seen somebody with a UK wrestling and grappling background come into the UFC and just not look as effective against the new level of opposition they're facing compared to the old level of opposition that they were facing? And again, I'm not saying that she hasn't fought good fighters. She has, in terms of against who she can, she's fighting the right level of competition, the best girls around her local area. So my hat's off to her in that regard. And Narco Cop was commenting, he thinks the girl that she fought last was like a very good striker technically. And so it's all respect. I don't even know the women's regional game as well. But what I would say is that Irina Alekseeva, I had mentioned when I was breaking down her fight with Stephanie Edgar, I was like, man, this girl seems really aggressive, like a submission hunter. She's going to try and latch onto something. And we had seen Stephanie Edgar get submitted before. We had seen Eileen Perez try and put her in some danger. She's like an ADCC grappler, right? She had been in that level before. She's a judo player with big throws and good arm bars and stuff. But she's a little bit limited in her grappling, I would say, where maybe some of the layers, some of the extended grappling situations aren't as favorable. She got audited by Tracy Cortez, for example, and gave up several bad positions in that fight due to the better wrestling of her opponent. So I think that Irina Alekseeva, she is wild and reckless, but I do think that Just Win is on the right track in terms of the fact that she does come forward swinging bombs, and I think Dixon is there to be hit on the feet. I think she's a little bit rote with her stand-up. So my question in terms of how this fight's going to play out is, does either woman get on top? Because I think that if Irina Alekseeva gets on top, she's probably going to be looking to pass the guard here. She's probably going to be looking to get to better positions, open up with some ground and pound, and look for the submission, would be my guess. Whereas I think that Dixon is going to try and just look for the ground and pound finish more often than not here. She seems very aggressive with her attacks on the ground in terms of her ground and pound stoppages. And I just think that on the feet, if she's taking shots on the feet, I don't think she'll be taking them very well. So I think she's going to need top time to win this fight. Do you think she's going to get takedowns pretty easily here?
Who?
Dixon. Do you think she's going to get the takedowns?
No. I think she'll get the takedowns easily the later this fight goes because of the cardio. It has nothing to do with the skill. I don't think Dixon's very good whatsoever. I don't think her skills are that high. Like I said, she gives up positions in the grappling. I just think Alekseeva has a little bit of quit in her when she's not the one doing the damage. Does that mean she's going to get finished here? No, not necessarily. Like, I think she could just survive the later this fight goes. But yeah, I just think Alekseeva round 1 is the way I would play Alekseeva, if anything. So if you like the KO prop, maybe go Alekseeva KO 1 or 2 under 1.5.
Though the one thing I will note is she hasn't fought the highest level girls, but she is 2-1 in fights that go to decision. So she isn't just a complete fish in fights that get extended. And Melissa Dixon, on the other hand, has finished a couple of her fights as well along the way. So I would say her cardio should probably check out, but in terms of UFC jitters, that's the one thing that it'll really test is whether or not your cardio is going to be fit to go, especially if you adrenaline dump. I do think there could be moments where both women have opportunities to finish here because if either one of them's on top, I think they're going to be kind of in the driver's seat. But I think that Alekseeva is more dangerous off of her back. So that for me is what makes me think that it's probably a money line dog or pass situation. But I again don't. I'm like you. I don't feel extremely bullish on this fight, but just gut feeling is Russian Ronda cool, kind of marketable. And in terms of Russian women, they don't have that many that they've marketed and promoted over the years. But I think that she kind of has that cool gimmick. She's got some fun finishes, and she looks to be very aggressive. Has a fun style on the feet. So maybe if she's just a fun killer be killed fighter, they'll keep running her out there.
I love this girl, man. Like, I just like watching her interview. I don't even understand even the translation. Like, I hate when I have to like hear the translator explain. But that translator was bomb. Go back and watch her last post fight interview. And bro, she's just funny, bro. I like her, dude. So I could see what you're saying with that one. So let's ride. Let's go with I got Dixon as like the last leg of my like long shot parlay. She's least confident pick, but yeah, man, let's ride Russian Ronda. Why not? Right?
For the cultura, por la cultura. That'd be cool. But next up, we got Chris Gutierrez, my man, taking on Alatengheili. And I'm happy to start this one off if you'd like. I think that this is a fun matchup where Chris Gutierrez, good kicker, dynamic game, fun offense, got some cool knockouts in the UFC. But I also think that, when you've got a 10-8 round that you gave up against a flyweight in the first round, I got to ask some questions about your grappling. I got to ask some questions about your wrestling defense. Did he answer well in that fight? Yes. Did he respond beautifully? Yes, exactly how you'd hope and expect. But that was Cody Durden on short notice, up a weight class, and he's able to take the guy down and route him on the mat for a while before he kind of gassed out and just had to hang on to that decision. And that's why it ended up going to the draw there. I think that if you give Cody Durden a full camp and he's at 135 pounds, we might be having a whole different conversation in that ball game. So when I'm looking at a fight like this, I do think to myself, Alatengheili comes out of a good camp, fight ready, not a bunch of slouches. I think that the biggest worry for him here is just getting kicked out from underneath himself. Gutierrez, long low kicks, hard shots. Alatengheili probably going to be predictably coming forward here for most of the fight, trying to grab a hold of this guy. But I do think that he's going to have to mix in some lateral movement here, get Gutierrez to try and chase him a little bit. I think if he's able to do that, then he can probably mix in his takedowns okay. Because I just think Gutierrez is easy to barrel over for a lot of these guys once they get open space takedown attempts. So interesting fight for me. I do lean towards a dog or pass money line, but I'm a little bit worried that Alatengheili is becoming a mush dog. So I want to see the splits for this fight. I have not seen them. But just in terms of like where I rate both these guys, I was going to bet Montel Jackson at chalk odds against Chris Gutierrez, and that fight got scrapped. Now we got a completely different matchup here. And I think Chris Gutierrez, definitely fun fighter with a fun style, but he's been in a bunch of close fights before. He hasn't always distinguished himself from his opponents. He's fought a bunch of guys that are older. Now he's fighting a younger guy in Alatengheili. Just seems to me like a closer matchup on paper than the number. I'm curious what you think, though, brother.
Yeah, I like the Alatengheili earlier in the week. I had to take the shot once it hit plus 335. That's insane. So I thought that line was way off. I think he does have grappling upside. I like the small cage for him. Here's the thing. He's going to have to use the grappling here, I think, because just a striking matchup, I don't think he can win. I do think he has power in both hands. That's something I like to see. But he's going to have to cut the cage off well because Gutierrez likes to use that lateral movement. If Alatengheili, the best way he can not get chopped by leg kicks in this fight, not be, confused by the lateral movement of Gutierrez, is to get this fight close to a clinch situation. And I think he's going to use his striking to set up that and do so here. I think he's more than a live underdog at that price you're giving me. Plus 335 odds. What's that? About a 20% chance to win the fight, close to that. man, that's a little bit insane for me for a fight that I believe is a little bit closer to, maybe 60-30. I mean, not 60-30, 70-30, but 60-40. I don't know here, man. I got to go with Alatengheili. You said he's a bit of a mush dog. You asked about the splits. I went back and looked. It was about like 80% for Gutierrez. So majority of the money's on Gutierrez. That doesn't necessarily mean anything, but yeah, pretty amount of love for a good amount of love for Gutierrez as well. But yeah, I see what you're saying. A lot of people look at Bet MMA tips. A lot of people are on Alatengheili at plus money, and public underdog, that doesn't necessarily go good any every day of the week. So maybe Alatengheili isn't the guy that busts everybody's parlays. It could be somebody else here. But yeah, I had to take a shot at that price, bro. Had to.
Yeah, the last thing that I wanted to mention, I feel like a lot of people were thinking to themselves that Gutierrez had a fight scheduled last week and Alatengheili is just on short notice. But that's not the case, right? He was supposed to fight Haniyaya, and so both of them were just without a dance partner. They kind of slapped them together. But Gutierrez, I would not be surprised if he's gone through multiple weight cuts now, certainly multiple preparations. Is he peaking fully for this fight? I'm not sure about that. So if he has a down performance here, who knows? Could just open the door for a potential underdog play. So at the big plus money, man, I'm certainly interested in doing a deeper dive before I go to sleep tonight and seeing if I'm going to have to put down a wager myself. But I think that Alatengheili, I did mention this on the show with Narco, and he did as well. The Alatengheili decision at plus 550 seems like his most viable prop. I don't know if you agree or disagree, but Chris Gutierrez, pretty solid chin, right? Actually never been knocked out before, been submitted once. It's been a long time since that took place. So I think of him as a pretty durable guy, hard to put away. Cody Durden had him in a lot of bad situations, wasn't able to close the show on him. So maybe Alatengheili just has some submission game we're not aware of, but unless he's the first guy to knock him out, you're basically taking that price and adding, another $1.50, almost $2 to the price. And I think it's his primary path by a long shot, So Alatengheili decision plus 550, Gutierrez KO plus 480. Those are two of the props that kind of caught my eye. If Gutierrez wins this fight, I feel like it's him keeping it upright and landing a lot of clean kicks. Because how did Alatengheili lose a fight really cleanly in the UFC? Casey Kenny butchered him with kicks. So I do think if he's not getting takedowns, if he's unable to get them, he will probably be getting lit up by the kicks. So
yeah,
that
he should
is
be the rightful. He should be the right. My fault. He should be the rightful favorite here. Because somebody said I got Chris on my parlay. I'm scared. I mean, he should be the rightful favorite, right? But I just think the value is way off.
Yeah, I think that the line is too aggressive here. I do think Chris is rightly favored, right? I think that he just has a more proven record in the UFC. But Alatengheili is not a pushover either by any means. Chad Hellinger is a good fighter. He's an underrated fighter, I would argue. Kevin Kroom probably had no business at 135 pounds and probably has no business in the UFC if we're being fair. The draw against Gustavo Lopez.
That's my guy, bro. There will be no Kevin Kroom slander on this podcast. That's my guy. He was the very first. I did a fighter interview with him. He's the only fighter. Like I think I did like 2 ever, and he's like the only, or maybe 3, and he's the first one ever. And yeah, dude, that guy's an interesting character to say the least, bro. But yeah, shout out my dude Kevin Kroom. Yeah, crazy cat, bro. I think he's in like bare knuckle FC now. But yeah, no Kevin Kroom slander will be taken here in this podcast.
We wish him the very best of luck with all his future endeavors, but I didn't think he was long for the UFC. Let's say that. But in any case, this is a guy, in my opinion, in Alatengheili, who has, a couple bad, egregious losses on his record, a much more, solid fighter over time, right? His last knockout loss was to Kai Asakura, who's one of the better bantamweight fighters outside the UFC. So I just think that that's not really a loss that's really egregious. Let's continue on, man. We got one fight left to break down. We've done a lot of digging here on the card. about 90 minutes in here, and I want to shout out to the 80 people rocking with us live. Thank you to each and every one of you guys. Hope you guys have already dropped a like on the video and got subscribed to the channel if you're not already, because we're talking fights each and every week here on the show. And if you want, turn on that notification bell so you never miss when we go live. Sometimes it's at all hours of the night, and if you don't want to miss when we get started, make sure you hit that bell. But in any case, Ashley Yoder, Emily Ducote, it's the first fight of the night. It's a longest layoff on the card. Ashley Yoder, right? She's coming back here at 35 years of age. Guys, she's going to be 36 in just a few days. So she's going on 36 years of age, and she's been around the game for a long time, but she's put together a 500 record. Nothing too impressive. 3-7 in the UFC. Since she's been on a more serious run of fights, she just hasn't performed, right? She's really looked bad, honestly. And Jinh Yu Frey is like an age contemporary. She's not a young girl on the come up. She's not a girl that's being positioned to win, and she easily beat her. So it's just like, unless she is a new fighter that's changed everything and is coming back with like a renewed purpose, I just feel like Ashley Yoder is not a UFC level fighter from everything I've seen from her over the years. She's been tough. She's been durable, hard to put away. But I think that even that was starting to show signs of cracking in the Jinh Yu Frey fight, of all people. So if Jinh Yu Frey is starting to land some damaging shots on you and make you second guess yourself, this feels to me like a girl like Emily Ducote, who, yeah, she wasn't the more violent girl against Lupe Godinez. I mean, God bless her for it. Lupe Godinez came out there with violent intentions, swanging and banging in the pocket, willing to get in there and box. And Lupe Godinez looked career best in that fight. So my hat is off to her, right? When you look at some other performances, Emily Ducote has not lived up to her expectations in the UFC yet, period, point blank. So would I advocate this money line price? No, I would not. Do I think she's going to win this fight and do it in dominant fashion? I do. I think that based on the skills, she's a better striker on the feet. I think she's more impactful when she lands. And I think that she's probably actually the better grappler between the two of these ladies as well. Just looking at how she's been effective with her submission game over the years. So I think Yoder's not a bad grappler, but I also think she's had opportunities against subpar grapplers in the UFC and not really materialized any success with it. So I don't know. I just can't get on the Ashley Yoder side here. How do you feel about this one, brother?
I feel like everybody in this entire thing at 2 or 3 in the morning, 11 in the morning, or well, I guess 11 p.m. it would be on the West Coast, right? You're all
Who
degenerate.
knows? Who
You're,
cares?
you're
East
all
Coast till I die, baby. CFFC in the building. What's up?
well, if you're up at 3 a.m. here to listen to our breakdown about this Ashley Yoder versus Emily Ducote fight, you're an absolute degen. Congratulations to you. You've made it this far to the people's main event. So, yeah.
We
Yeah,
love
drop
the
where
West
you
Coast, by the way. I'm just fucking with you guys.
drop where you guys are at. 3 a.m. So a lot of 3 a.m.s. Wow, man. Beaver, that's not nice of you, man. You gotta chill out with that, bro. But yeah, Ashley Yoder, she is absolute dog dirt. This girl is terrible. Watch the Panay fight. Another girl who's long, tall. She might not throw as much teep kicks, as much jabs, the straight punches up the middle, using the reach as Panay. I mean, as Yoder. But she's slow. She's old. She shoots telegraph takedowns, just like Yoder. She got her leg absolutely butchered. I think Yoder is susceptible to that leg kick. And I think once she damages her to the legs, the head kick will be there. She could possibly get the finish. Yoder's never been finished in her career, though. And, yeah, dude, you guys got that Biggie Smalls Tupac beef going now. I'm going to step out of this one, man. I like Ducote here. I think Yoder's absolutely awful. I hear people saying maybe for a Yoder, trying to argue for Yoder. It's women's MMA, I get it. But, the volume, Ducote doesn't have a lot of volume. I think she, picks it up as the rounds go on. She makes her reads a little bit earlier on in the beginning, and then she starts to, pick apart her opponent. So yeah, Ducote here, but I don't know if it's a finish or not. I'm not really looking to bet this fight. I would take maybe Ducote money line in the long shot parlays. That's it, bro. That's all I got for this one.
I think a lot to me suggests Ducote ITD here. And the reason I say that, I look at this fight and it's a huge favorite price. It's a girl that's been inactive on the Ashley Yoder side, injured on the Ashley Yoder side, never been finished on the Ashley Yoder side, which is why I think you're getting a decent price here. But again, I just think we're seeing a consistent dip off in the performances. And then the inactivity makes me think if she had been active, maybe she would have been accruing more losses and potentially more finish losses and potentially that contract that she just signed wouldn't have been materializing, right? But instead, she still has a big following, right? She's got, good social media and all that stuff, but can she produce inside the octagon? I think that's a difficult question to answer. And I think that the evidence suggests it's unlikely. So for me, I'm leaning towards that Ducote ITD. You're seeing 3-1 in some places on Ducote ITD here, and she's underperformed in the past. I think that's why you're getting this number. So I do think that Chaos makes a valid argument. Height, reach, and volume decision Yoder, fair play. I think that that's the argument for the Yoder side for sure. But I also think that this is a potential sharp angle from our guy Just Win. TKO 2 or 3, Ducote 2 or 3 as well. If that's a option for you guys, some books offer that. And I just think it's probably going to be a later finish if it materializes. Yoder's tough. She's not going to just go out there and phone it in, I don't think. But we've seen really impressive knockouts from Emily Ducote. We've seen against Kanako Marotte. Did anybody go back and tape that fight before Kanako Marotte fought last week? I mean, she had her on dangerous situations many, many times over the course of 5 rounds with that submission offense. And we just saw Marotte against the black belt was able to defend those same positions against Vanessa and mostly avoid getting into them at all. Who was able to get into them? Emily Ducote over and over and over again. Just like Verna Janjaroba, who's a really high-level grappler. So I just think that I'm leaning towards the Ducote side here because, again, I don't actually find myself convinced that Yoder's a better grappler than her. Like, if Yoder gets what she wants and gets takedowns, is she safe? Is she going to hang out on top and just coast to a win? I'm not positive that she will do that. So.
And she shoots the slowest, most telegraphed takedowns ever. Like, I could see her just being down there at in the front headlock position and getting submitted here. So yeah, maybe like fight doesn't go the distance or Ducote inside the distance makes sense here. But I haven't put a play on it yet. But
I have a theory about that Ducote Hill fight, which is that I think they're friends. I'm not positive about that, but I think that they're friends. I think they might be former sparring partners and stuff. So I think that she kind of did, just phone that fight in a little bit. And I do think that she's training with Hill. Oh, there you go. Interesting. Yeah, Chaos, I get it. She's never been finished, but she's also been in a pretty low level of UFC competition, and she's 3-7, including 1-7 as an underdog for a minus 70% ROI. So it's not to say she can't win. She could buck trend, but trend has said, like, when she's a dog, she loses, just like across the board. And now she's a massive dog here. So it's WMMA. I would say it's dog or pass money line pricing, but I would be looking to get a little bit more creative with the ITD on the Ducote side and hoping that she rocks up motivated here to earn that UFC contract to keep getting, important fights for her career. Because it would be one thing to make it to the UFC, but it's another thing to stick around. And I think the UFC is saying, like, hey, if you want to stick around here, go get this win and show us something a little bit more impressive. So if you guys have any more questions, comments, concerns that you want to get off your chest, you can go ahead and fire them off real quick. But otherwise, I'm going to kick this to my guy, Jewish Better, to let the people know where they can find you, my man. We have done an hour and 37 minutes. We talked about some post-weigh-in thoughts. We've kicked it around a little bit on some of the props and the money lines, the totals that we're looking at for this card, and just trying to break down these fights in terms of our analysis over the course of the week. So appreciate you being here and appreciate everything that you brought to the table, my man. Let the people know where they can find you.
Yeah, MMA J Better on Twitter, at MMA Jewish Better on Instagram. But yeah, I like Arrojo here. I like maybe you got to take a look at the Oliveira side, like my dude Liam said. But I like the under 2.5 in that fight, and I'm starting to maybe gonna have to go back and watch film after you're talking about this one about the Ducote finish. Yeah, Yoder hasn't been finished historically, but she got rocked pretty bad by Jin Frey. So it's not to say that Ducote couldn't finish her, right? So under 2.5, sitting at like plus 275 last time I checked. So that's not a bad price. Those are the bets I'll really be looking at on this one. But yeah, Rojo is going to be my most confident pick on the card. I think she's undervalued here in this spot coming off the loss, and with Maia coming off the 2 wins. It's a little bit of a public bet on Maia that I'm going to be going against, and I think Araujo has advantages here on the top with the grappling. That's all I got for this one. Good luck to everyone on this card, but that's where my head is at for this one.
Oh, snap. Just win, says Maya. Now the mush. Clapping hands emoji. So he seems to be agreeing with your take, my brother. I was agreeing with you as well. I think that this is a really interesting spot. And shout out to you for dropping the hammer off the top rope with the big plays as well.
I have not bet it yet. I will be 100% honest. I have not bet it yet. But the reason I haven't bet it yet is because I just want to wait until the last second. I'm going to wait until they're in the octagon, and I'm just going to slam it, brother.
Love it. And shout out to Fubo, says, any more matches coming up for Liam? When I have things to announce, I will definitely let you guys know. Hoping to have more dates on the calendar soon. But right now, just playing it by ear. I always listen to my coach. If he says, hey, I got a match for you, I'm always in. So excited, going to get back to work soon. A lot of my teammates right now, ADCC trials, so shout out to all of them. God bless them for it. I'll be there 2 years from now. Watch this space. But a lot of great competitors from Enzo, Gracie, Warwick putting on for the team right now as well. So just wanted to shout out to them, going out there and doing their thing. And guys, want to shout out to each and every one of you guys who's rocking with us in the chat. I say each and every week, sharpest chat in the game. Whether you guys are with me or against me, I appreciate your feedback. I appreciate the comments that you guys have. A lot of you guys open up my mind to new things I haven't thought of. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to do some more due diligence. I'm going to do my final write-up, my picks, my previews, my predictions for Roto Grinders. All that's still coming. So the grind never stops for me, guys. It's right back to work. I appreciate everybody rocking with me, but now I got to go close out my research, put a nail in it, and I put my predictions on ice each and every week. Every prediction that I have written down on Roto Grinders. Normally these things are published right after the fact, right after the fight, what I thought, why I thought it, and I try my very best to put you guys in a position to succeed. So whether you're rocking with me or going against me, thank you guys for the support. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for sharing what you guys have to say. And until next time, make sure you get subscribed and come back next time because we're having all the same fun again. Did you have something else you wanted to add, brother?
No, sharp stuff, my man, Liam. Sharp stuff, bro.
Awesome. Well, with that being said, guys, God bless. Good luck on all your bets, and we'll see you again next time. Take care, everybody. Thanks.